I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Friday morning, November 5th. Another frosty morning here in the suburban areas to the north and west of Philadelphia, and it's like that suburbs of D.C. all the way up to New York City. A chilly time period here over the past few days. It looks like it'll remain chilly right through the upcoming weekend. In fact, temperatures again late tonight and late tomorrow night should drop to the lower 30s in most suburban locations along the I-95 corridor. Next week, there'll be a warm-up throughout much of the eastern half of the nation. Should bring high temperatures back well up into the 60s in places like D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, at least in the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday time frame. It looks like a storm this weekend will push to the northeast across Florida, then up the Carolina coastline a little bit, and then push on out to sea. Probably will not have an influence, at least not much of an influence, on the mid-Atlantic region as it pushes away from the east coast during the latter part of the upcoming weekend. Meanwhile, the west coast, all the way from Washington State down to the northern half of California, gets pounded by several storms over the next several days, with a lot of rainfall along the coast and some heavy snows at inland higher elevation locations. By the way, before we move on, just a reminder, this is the weekend in which we turn the clocks back an hour late Saturday night going into Sunday morning. First of all, let's take a look at the 5-day total precipitation forecast map from NOAA. Really two areas of emphasis here I want to talk about. First of all, this is all associated with that storm system that pulls out of the Gulf of Mexico, crosses Florida, comes up along the Carolina coastline for a while, and then pushes on out to sea. So some significant rainfall across much of the Florida peninsula, and then coastal sections along the southeast U.S. coastline, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, even into the southeastern part of Virginia. Expect some decent rainfall from this. But for now, it looks like most of the Mid-Atlantic region will be spared from any precipitation. There certainly can be some wind effects, especially along the Delmarva Peninsula, New Jersey coastline, for example, later in the upcoming weekend. Meanwhile, out in the Pacific Northwest, all the way down to the northern half of California, a lot of rainfall along coastal sections from British Columbia all the way down to the northern half of California, and some decent snows at higher elevation locations such as the Sierra Nevada mountain range of eastern California. Again, a lot of precipitation, a lot of storminess for the U.S. West Coast over the next 5 days or so. Well, let's walk through the 500 millibar height anomaly forecast maps from the ensemble run of the GFS from 6Z last night. Going through the next several days, a couple of highlights here. First of all, we have that storm developing today over the Gulf of Mexico region. Again, it looks like it'll cut across Florida, kind of hug the southeastern U.S. coastline, and then move on out to sea. And here's a ridge already seen across the interior part of the western U.S. to northern plains that spreads to the east next week and is accompanied by a big-time warm-up for much of the eastern half of the nation, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday time frame. And then we'll move past that time frame and take a look at what could happen at the end of next week going into next weekend. Let's just move forward here. Again, here's that storm system down across the southeastern U.S., at least the associated upper level low with that system by tomorrow morning. A lot of ridging out across the middle of the nation, and here we go. A lot of storminess out across the Pacific Northwest, and again impacting all the way down to the northern half of California. This storm system looks like it'll spread some significant rainfall up to the Carolina coastline and then start to push on out to the north and east, sparing the mid-Atlantic region. And by the time we get into Monday, strong upper level ridging will really set up over the Great Lakes, extending all the way down to the south central states. A warm-up will spread into the eastern U.S., especially on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. Again, high temperatures in the big cities along the I-95 corridor region in the 60s on those 3 days. Meanwhile, a lot of blue showing up here, lower heights than normal storminess out across the U.S. West Coast. And everything is kind of moving along here. We don't get stuck in a pattern for too long here. By the time we get towards the latter part of next week, here we go now by Thursday of next week, still some upper level ridging hanging on across the northeast U.S., but notice another deep upper level low. And indeed there's a colder than normal air mass associated with this. This slowly pushes into the eastern states by a week from now, going into next week, and this is the Saturday morning forecast map. A week from tomorrow, November 13th, again, this will be a stormy pattern here. Could be a potential significant rain event in the eastern U.S., and then colder air comes in on the backside of that rain event. Something to monitor over the next several days. Meanwhile, it flips in the Pacific Northwest a week from now to higher heights to normal, warmer than normal, and likely dry conditions will return after several days of rain along the coast and snows at the higher elevation locations inland. Well, let's now take a look at the operational run of the GFS from 6Z, starting off the day with a lot of dry conditions and chilly conditions in the Mid-Atlantic region. And again, frost has been prevalent this morning and the last couple of mornings in the suburban locations along the I-95 corridor region, and that will repeat late tonight and again late Saturday night. Here is moisture already gathering together over the Gulf of Mexico, and that will consolidate right here by the time we get to Saturday morning. A healthy storm system right along the northeastern coast of Florida, pushing some heavy rainfall, especially the northern half of Florida, into Georgia, South Carolina, and that extends all the way up to the Carolina coastline by the time we get to Sunday. A lot of wind as well. Expect some strong northeast winds. Outer Banks, for example, on Sunday, some heavy rainfall with a strong storm system. Does appear now that it will then move to the north and east, sparing most of the Mid-Atlantic region of any impact on Sunday. There will be some wind to deal with across the Delmarva Peninsula and coastal New Jersey late Sunday night time frame, but the precipitation looks like goes on out to the north and east into the open waters of the Atlantic. Meanwhile, a lot of storminess out across the western U.S. Here we go by Tuesday morning, a significant storm here. Again, heavy rainfall across coastal regions from British Columbia all the way down to the northern half of California. A lot of snow, interior, higher elevation snows across places like the Sierra Nevada and eastern California, even the higher elevations inland across Washington, Idaho. This is, again, the early to middle part of next week, and that can extend all the way into the interior western U.S. by the middle part of next week. Quiet, warm conditions in the Mid-Atlantic, in the Great Lakes, Northeast, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday time frame. Let's not quickly jump to the end of next week. And what happens is we notice that next strong upper level low diving into the south central U.S. It could result in a significant rain event on the front side of that in the eastern U.S. Friday, Saturday time frame next week, and colder air will come in on the backside. Here we have the GFS for a week from today with some significant rainfall in the eastern U.S. Not sure on the timing of this yet. Could be Friday, could be Saturday, and then we'll move forward here. And still another chance of some significant rainfall in the eastern U.S. Later next week. And so we have a warm-up coming to much of the eastern half of the nation, especially Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday into Thursday time frame of next week. Then it could get kind of wet again in a week from now, let's say next Friday, Saturday time frame, as colder air drops into the southern south central part of the U.S. all the way across the central plains. Eventually that cold air works its way back into the eastern U.S. as well. That's it for now. Don't forget, this is the weekend where we turn the clocks back an hour late Saturday night going into Sunday morning. That's it. I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.